Um, Title to my sermon is Keys to Obedience. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this day. Just thank you that you gave us another day of life. Thank you that we can be here, God, to worship you. God, help me in the words that I'm speaking to honor you and to be your words, God, but not mine. Again, just thank you for the Sabbath and another day of life. In Jesus' name, amen. So, there was this little kid who wanted a cookie and it was on the counter. The mom just got done with the stove and she told him not to go near it, not to touch it because it was hot. She left and she told him, don't touch it. Remember, don't touch it. But he wanted that cookie so bad that he went up, he put his hands on the stove and burned his hands. The kid started screaming and was crying, and the mom came and rushed over and was like, what did you do? I told you not to touch the stove. And he's like, I really wanted that cookie. What did the kid do? What did the kid lack that got him hurt? Obedience. If he obeyed, he would not have gotten burned. And obedience is something that is taught at a very young age. That should be taught at a very young age and should stay with you forever. Today I'm going to be discussing keys to unlock obedience, not just in our daily lives, but how to obey with God as well. These points I have seen in my own life and experienced in my own life. They might not be the keys for you, but they might help you see something in yourself that, oh man, I have to work on that to obey, or I should do this because it's keeping me from obeying. I have 3 points of things that we should do to obey and 2 points of why we don't obey. So point number 1 is trust. The definition of trust is firm belief in reliability, truth, ability, or strength in someone or something. That someone meaning God. Anything applied to life without God is not lasting. It won't last. It won't work. It might for a little bit. It might fulfill us for a little bit, but not forever. God in your life is refreshing and uplifting. And I can speak from experience because just coming at a young age, I don't know, it's hard for me to read the Bible, but when I read it, God knows exactly what He's trying to say with me that day. He knows exactly what I need. So just Him in my life is refreshing. We have to trust, then obey. If someone randomly, like in the parking lot, offers you candy, would you take it? No, right? Stranger danger, right? You wouldn't take it. When someone has a best friend, do they start telling each other their deepest, darkest secrets? They start talking about everything and anything in the world. Like, we're not in first grade, right, anymore, so we can't do that. They don't. They spend time with each other. They spend all of their time together, and sometimes these best friends are really creepy because they know like everything about him. It's really weird. But I often ask the question of, how can I know God if I don't spend time with Him? And the simple but harsh answer is you can't. You won't trust someone if you don't know them. You won't take that candy because you don't know them. How I've learned that I have to know God is reading His Word daily. Don't just read it. Don't just read the words that are there, but think about it. I never really knew what it meant to meditate on it. I always thought that was like where you cross your legs and hold your fingers like that. But meditating on His Word, like reading it and dwelling on it, letting it like fill your mind instead of the thoughts that you usually would think about, like throughout your day, just letting it come into your head. Take time to think on it. Then you have that relationship with Him and you build the trust. Obedience requires knowing God, and by knowing God, it equals obedience toward God. Once you read His Word, you will find that God is sovereign, He keeps His promises, He's the same, and He's faithful. The Bible gives us the character of God. He gives us the character of God so that we can know Him and that we can be His friend, that He can dwell in us. And to me, that's the best friend you could ever have. Once you know that person, you'll do anything to keep their trust. Once you know God, you'll do anything to keep His trust, anything to stay with Him, and that includes obedience. Trusting God means that you do what He says in the Bible and see the results. Do what God says no matter what and see the results. It's simple, but it's not easy. Coming from me, I don't like giving my problems to somebody else. I want to do it myself because I don't want to be a burden for somebody else. But we have to have trust that if we give it to God, He'll take care of it. If we give it to God, He'll fulfill us and He'll just take care of whatever we need. We have to give everything to God so that we can do what he says in Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. And I'll give you some time to look there. Proverbs 3, 5 to 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not in your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. One part that goes with trust is patience. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him. We have to give him our time and everything that we do, and giving up our time is one of the hardest things. Getting up out of that couch from watching the TV, or getting up just from even working or spending too much time doing something else, we can give it up to God. And also trusting God that if we obey him, that he gives us a task. We trust God that he'll fulfill us, and that no matter what, he's with us. And that it might not be in our time, but in his time he'll take care of it. And that's trust, because you don't know where he's going to take you. He might take you to the point that you never thought you could be, but he's going to take you there because you trust him. You still trust him no matter what happens and however long a time it is, because he said he would deliver you. For example, King David. He was anointed to be king at a very young age. And once Saul figured out that he was going to be king, he tried to kill him. He hunted him down. He was in a cave sleeping, and his army told him, "That's your chance. Go kill him. You can be king." He went up there but cut his robe instead. He knew that it wasn't his time because he trusted God. He had patience that when his time would come, that he would fulfill him and that he would make him king. Patience then takes us into our next point, which is faith. And I'll be reading Deuteronomy 5:33. I'll give you some time to get there as well. Walk in the way that the Lord your God hath commanded you, so that you may live and prosper and prolong your days in the land that you will possess. Faith and trust go hand in hand, just like all of these other points. You can't have faith in someone if you don't trust them. You're not going to fall back into somebody's arms unless you trust them that they'll catch you, and you have faith that they'll catch you. The definition of faith is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. Key word is complete. Not 50% faith, not 80%, not even 99.9% faith. 100% faith. Faith is putting your life in God's hands. Faith is praising him in the good and the bad, in the plenty and in the famine, in the darkness and in the light. Faith is letting go and giving God. I'll be reading from Romans 8:14, and I'll give you some time to get there. Because those who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. You put your faith in God, you let him lead you anywhere, anytime, anything. He'll take care of you. He'll just let you prosper. He'll let your hand prosper. Look at Joseph. He gave him to God. He was in prison. He was in like the deepest, darkest time you could ever be in. Your own brothers, your own family betrayed you. Like you have nobody. You were wrong for something that you didn't even do. But he still trusted God. It doesn't mean that it was easy. It was difficult. I mean, if that was me, I would have been yelling, screaming. I was like, God, why did you do this? Like, I have done nothing wrong. But he still put his faith in him. And Egypt prospered. He let them survive the greatest famine there was in Egypt. Letting God use you is key, but it's hard. In order to let him use you, you have to obey. Look at Jonah. He was used by God, but he didn't want to obey, and that made it hard for him. He was in a fish. Like, if he would just obeyed, yeah, there was difficult times, like they were opposition, they were fighting against each other, but if he would have just obeyed, it would have been way easier, way simpler. You have to trust God and obey Him when He puts you through something that's not easy, but it's simple. Faith is one of the greatest things you can give God, and faith and obedience go hand in hand. So obedience is one of the greatest things you can give God. When you put your faith in Him, He wants to give you His blessings. He wants to show you His will because you're giving all of yourself to Him. Giving yourself to Him is super hard. I'm still struggling with that. Giving myself to Him 100%. And that means when I get a job and I quit it because He told me that I should, that I have faith and I have trust that He'll give me that other job. But that doesn't mean just sitting here and doing nothing. You still have to put in the work. And putting in the work means going and finding that other job. And He'll bless you with the job that He'll give you. Believing is another part of faith. Believing that He will take care of you when you quit that job, that you will find another one. Believing that He loves you and He'll never leave you in the dark time, because He said He would never leave you. Now you have to know His voice as well. The devil he's smart. He's out there. I mean, look, he even tried to tempt Jesus with the Word. But by knowing His voice, you read the Word. And how you know His voice is something that I've always struggled with. Well, how can I know that God is speaking to me? How can I know that it's God talking to me? Like, I want to hear Him clearly, like how He talked to Moses in a burning bush. I want to hear Him clearly, but that's not always how it works. And I've learned that when you read the Word and something pops into your head that's not from you, that you would never think about, but you put it next to the Bible and it lines up with it, that's coming from God. That's God speaking to you. That's how you have to know His voice. And that is how you obey Him. Even in the smallest things, even just reading the Word. Oh man, I really don't want to read today, but I'm going to do it because I want to get closer to you. I'm going to do it because I need you. I'm going to obey you. Faith without action is nothing either. Faith in God shows action. Once He shows us His will, He gives it up to us to do our part because He already knows that He's got His part. Once He shows us His will, we have to have the confidence to take it out, which leads me into my next point, confidence. And I'll be going to Psalms 28, verse 7. Oh, Psalms 128, verse 7, sorry. Psalms 130, my bad. I just see that Psalms 128 doesn't have a 7. Psalms 130, sorry. So Psalms 137. O Israel, put your hope in the Lord, for with the Lord is unfailing love, and with Him is full redemption. Just like the rest of these points, confidence goes hand in hand with faith. You have to have confidence that He'll take care of you. But again, you have to put in the work. You have to show that you want it, not by reading the Word, because we can say something. We can say, I believe in you, God, but then we don't give ourselves to Him. We can say that, oh, I love you, God, but we don't show it in our lives. And that's something that's key, because how we always talk about in our Sabbath school that you have to be a leader. Like, people look at you even when you don't know. People always are observing you. And how can they love Christ? How can they say, oh man, that person's different if we don't show that in our lives? Confidence builds you up, but confidence builds you up. Coming from me, I'm a sports player, so once I shoot like the basketball and I see it go in the net, it's like, oh, I can take that shot again. Or once I score that goal, it goes in the net, like a perfect goal right in the corner, it's like, oh man, I can do that again next game. Confidence builds, and it builds you up. It motivates you, but it shouldn't get to the point where you're prideful, because pride becomes before fall. Results happen when you put in practice. Practice obedience, practice faith, and practice your confidence, and you will grow and see what God can do for you. The definition of confidence is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something, firm trust. In all the definitions I've given you, one of the key words is rely. Hold up. One of the key words is rely, complete, something or someone. Something or someone is a key word in every one of the definitions. Confidence is key because it gives you obedience to rely on God and use you as a tool. If God gives you a task that you never thought you could achieve, you have to have confidence that because God is with you, that you can do it. If you don't believe in yourself, how is God supposed to use you and how are you supposed to help other people? You have to have confidence that when you go talk to that person that doesn't know about the faith, yeah, they might reject you, but you did what God told you to do. You have to have confidence, faith, and trust because you obeyed Him no matter what. In the hardest times, in the hardest things. When we're put through fire, that's when our true character comes out. Our true obedience, our true faith, trust, and confidence. In high school, I've been invited to a lot of parties that are on Saturday, and all my friends are going there, and it stinks. So I was like, oh, I want to go spend time with my friends, but in the end, I come to church, and every single time I've had a party that I've been invited to, a dance, or even like a graduation party, I've come, and the sermon is just what I needed to hear. And he just fulfills me. He's like, well, you don't have to go to that party to be with friends and to have a good time. You can be here in my church and have a good time. And it's hard being the only Seventh-day Adventist at my school, but keeping that obedience just makes me feel good and feel that, well, maybe the next task that God gives me, I can obey and keep it as well. And it doesn't always have to be the big thing. You don't always have to be a big person. For me, I've always wanted to do something big. I've always wanted to be like something big. I've always wanted to be a professional soccer player, but just from hearing things at my school, when I pray for somebody and they're like, I really needed that, that fulfills me. It's something small, it's something simple, but it's so fulfilling because you help somebody in their time of need. But you have to believe that through it all, God can do it. Because if you don't believe that God can't do it, you're limiting Him. You're putting a label on Him that God's not power enough to do what He said that He would. God's not power enough to part the Red Sea again. That He's not power enough to do anything. Moses didn't believe right away when God told him that he was going to be a leader to lead them out of Egypt. And he came from there, he murdered somebody, and he ran away. Like, he was scared. He did not want to go back. But once he submitted to God, once he gave himself to God, 100%, he used him to do great things. He led them to the promised land. He led them out of Egypt. They had a fire cloud. They have a fire at night and a cloud by day to lead them. He prayed and manna came down. God used him for great things. And he never thought that he would be there. But that's where obedience came in. And that's where obedience took you. Moses had to put work and trust, faith and confidence in God that he would see things through. And through it all, one of the most important things that he had to do was obey. And one of the things that we can do to obey is obey His law, the 10 Commandments. All of them, not just 9, not just 7, not just 6, all of them. Because if we break one, then we break all. Confidence builds over time, so we need to spend time with God. We have to build that confidence with God. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but it's something that is so simple, but we miss so many times. Me, I have an older brother, I have a dad, and they're just like the biggest leaders in my life, and I appreciate them so much. But when I need to get something through my head, or just anything, they have to say it straightforward. Because if they sugarcoat it, I'm not going to listen. I need it straightforward because I need it straight and to the point, even if it hurts. And that's how we have to be with God. Yeah, God's going to tell us. He's going to find stuff inside of our hearts that we don't want, and it hurts. But when we give our life to Him and we obey Him, He'll fulfill us. We have to be obedient and not hesitant. And that's hard. Being hesitant is one of the hardest things. You're scared. Me, personally, I'm scared of heights. I've been on a roller coaster, and I'm never doing that again. Like, even a Ferris wheel, they're small. I mean, not small, they're big. But it goes so slow, and like you're at the top. I'm like, oh, I'm good, I'm cool. Like I'll go to an amusement park and I'll have fun, but I'm not getting on any of the rides or anything. And I feel like that's something that we do so many. That's something we do so many times with God is we're hesitant. We're hesitant to just let Him lead us, to obey Him, because we're in this sinful world. We're so limited. We ourselves are limited, but with God, anything is possible. Coming off of that leads us to the 2 points, in my life especially, that I don't obey God. And point number 1 is fear. Like I said, I'm scared of heights, and that's going to keep me from doing roller coasters, Ferris wheels, anything that's up high. But fear keeps us away from God, and fear ultimately keeps us away from obedience. If we have parents, and if we fear them, not in the fear like respect, but fear is like we're scared, we're not going to obey them because we love them. We're not going to obey them because we want to please them. We want to do what's best for them. We're going to obey them because we're scared. And I feel like that's what the devil is. He has us obey him because we're scared. We're scared to do what's right. We're scared that when we talk to somebody about the faith, that they're going to judge us, and we're not going to be seen as good. We're not going to be seen as, oh, you're such a good person. No, but we're speaking the truth. And people don't like the truth sometimes. And that keeps us from doing things. Like Caleb and Joshua and the 12 spies. They went into the promised land. I mean, they probably had some like huge grapes, some huge fruit, like, man, the best scenery you've ever seen, and like you can't even imagine. But then there's this giants. And Joshua and Caleb was like, oh yeah, they're giants, but we got that. We got that with God. And other people, they're like, oh no, what am I going to do? But they didn't realize that God has led them all the way from Egypt. He's part of the Red Sea. He's kept the Egyptians from being close to capturing them. He's fed them. He's given them meat when they wanted. He's given them water when they wanted. And through all that, they complained. And even the snake bites, when they got bitten by snakes, He healed them. Some people died, but yeah, He healed most of them. And they still forgot. But Caleb and Joshua weren't fearful. They trusted God. They obeyed Moses. And because God used Moses, they obeyed God. God won't let us fall. But that doesn't mean that doing the most insane things, like jumping off a cliff, that's extreme. But I'm believing that, oh yeah, God's going to catch me because I believe that He'll catch me. He'll catch me because I obeyed Him. Well, God's not going to tell you to do that in the first place. Fear gets us to lay back, which leads me into my next point, laziness. Laziness is something that I believe is a major part in not obeying. For me, when I'm concentrated on something and my mom or dad tells me to do something, I'm concentrated, say I'm watching TV or something. I don't listen, and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it. I'm comfortable in this chair with my blanket and everything. I'm comfortable. I don't want to take out the trash, but that's something simple. Again, simple doesn't always have to be simple. Can always mean something big. Knowing God doesn't mean that we know of Him, but we know Him. And again, we have to read the Word. How else are we going to know somebody if we don't spend time with Him? How else are we going to know somebody if we don't actually want to know them and actually want to get to know them? Because we can read it, but like I said, we can just read the words. But we have to meditate on it and truly try to interpret it. And without God, we can't. God won't give us more than we can handle. He'll give us what we need and a little bit more so that we can grow. He'll push us to our limit. He'll push us to the edge, and we'll think we'll fall off. But no, He's holding our hand this whole time. God's bigger than I've ever even thought. I mean, you think He's like that. He holds the world in His hands, but we still are fearful. We're still limited. We limit ourselves. We have to let God work in us so that we can obey, that we can trust, have faith, and confide in Him. Obedience, like I said, is one of the best things that we can give God. Alright, let's pray. Dear God, thank You for this day. Just thank You that You gave me another day of life, that You gave us another day of life. Thank you that you just blessed us with family, friends. God, just that you bless us with you, and that we know that you're always with us. God, help us to obey you more, to read your word more, to just give you 100% of us, God. And we know that's something that's going to take a while, but you have time. God, just help us to do everything according to your will. And help us not to lean on our own understanding, but yours. Thank you for everything again. In Jesus' name, amen.